Hey, my name is Jason Camp. I'm an IT professional for my day job, and I dabble in all things AV at our church. I enjoy building things, breaking things, fixing things, and especially learning. I've been the tech lead at our church for over a decade, but still feel ill-equipped to make our amazing musicians sound as good as possible while giving the space for the congregation to really engage in worship. I'm a problem solver, but this last 20% refinement just seems out of reach. I've done lots of training and tinkering, but I feel there's still a gap that I just can't cross with my lack of skills in artistry and mastering sound, which I honestly don't think will ever happen. The worship leader would tell me that the singers feel too exposed in the mix for our live stream, and I just struggle with figuring out what dials need to change and by how much. Others would tell me that the drum cymbals are too crashy, and I would nod and not have the faintest idea where to start. I would continuously tinker and incrementally make things a bit better, but not really make the kind of velocity to the goal that I wanted. I had a conversation with a worship leader recently where I asked her, of all the Christian bands out there, what style most matches with what we do? She told me the band that she thought best met our style, and I started listening to that band for the next week or so just to tune my ear a bit to that aimpoint. I also just finished reading the Vibe Coding book by Gene Kim and Steve Yagi and was inspired to try to solve this problem with a technique that I've never used before, even though I've done a lot of coding over the years. So I was going to have AI write some agent skills to bridge this gap for me. So in the past couple months, we've been starting to record all the raw tracks for our services so we can do virtual playback. So I had the information I needed to mess around with seeing what Agentic code could do to get us closer to our aim point. I still wanted us to sound like us, but I know the sound text on the band that we were aiming for could run circles around me in the sound arena. As I started training the agent skills, it quickly became apparent that I was going to have to do much more than just a brain dump of what I knew, since I wanted this skill to surpass my knowledge. As I was guiding and steering the AI to gain the skills from resources that I trusted, they were slowly becoming more mature. I would create a new skill, and it would take a couple hours for it to mature and become usable, but they all grew up really fast. I wanted these skills to be single purpose, to keep things tidy, and also for them to be used by others. I think the main skill that I spent the most time training was the live worship mix engineer. It seemed like this was the most important piece of the puzzle, so I really focused on that skill. Additional skills started to spin off, like the band sound aimpoint and the Waves live plugin chains and the mix render diagnostics. I still think these skills can be matured a bit, but I'm pleasantly surprised that they can do what they can already. So here's the workflow. You capture the multitrack recordings on Sunday. In my case, I'm using the Behringer Wing, sending to REAPER. I copy the raw recordings to my Google Drive so I can reach them from my home to run some analysis there. I define the aim point by giving that skill some band samples to target. I then use Codex with several of the skills we built to make the FX plugin changes directly in REAPER. So I constrained to only use the Waves plugins available in SuperRack because we're using SuperRack SoundGrid server. I would tell it things like iterate 20 times over the bass guitar and render a grade and grade each result and let me know which one was the winner. Since it now had all the skills to do live worship mixing, the skill to interact with REAPER directly, and the skill to understand all the SuperRack Waves plugins, it started making changes to the FX plugins and then grading each of those results, all with the aim point in mind. Sometimes I would ask it to iterate yet another 20 times to see if I could even get closer to the mark, to the target. I was burning through AI tokens, but I was also having a lot of fun doing it. The result was that it was solving problems that I couldn't solve myself and making things sound better than I honestly ever thought. The other skill that was kind of fun to do was the SuperRack session files skill. After we captured all the FX plugin winners and all their crazy settings and properties, I could easily just export everything over to this SPRK file in SuperRack Performer that I could then just put back on my Google Drive to be used for the next Sunday by the Waves SoundGrid server. Here's a small taste of what it looks like. In this demo, I asked Codex to mix the drums using the Waves SuperRack-compatible plugins and get as close as possible to the Cydia Lite style aimpoints in 5 runs. Codex first identifies the drum layout. There's a drum bus, kick, snare, toms, overheads, and hybrid support tracks. Then it looks at the waves processing that's already staged. F6, SSL compression, Semblance, C1 gate, torque, R compressor, H compression. From there, it starts making controlled experiments. Run 1 is the current chain. Run 2 tightens up some low-mid buildup. Run 3 tries more punch and bus compression. Run 4 smooths the cymbal edge. And run 5 combines the useful parts into a more natural, refined pass. What I like about this is that it's not just randomly turning knobs, it's working towards a stated aim point. For this pass, the winning direction was controlled drums, smoother top end, supportive punch, and still natural enough for a worship mix. And because this is what being staged with Waves plugins, the next step is practical. Once the engineer likes the results, those settings can be moved towards the SuperRack and tested on the live rig. And that's the part that feels kind of mind-blowing to me. This turns a weekday into a mix lab. Sunday gives us all the raw material, and the engineer gives the taste and the target, but Codex does the heavy lifting. It does the iteration and experimentation. And by the next Sunday, we're not just hoping the mix gets better. We've listened, we've tested, we've compared, and we've moved closer on purpose and with great velocity, I might add. There's a real value in this tool. It's more like having a patient assistant that can burn through experiments, learn your sound, and help you bridge the gap between what people are hearing and what you know how to fix.